Welcome back, everybody. Light Warriors Unleashed podcast, episode 40. And this experience you are about to go through is just that, an experience. And I've had the pleasure of interviewing Diane on this episode today. And she leans into some real and raw and vulnerable things. The death of her son at the age of 6 years old, how it shaped her meaning, let's say, in the world, or how it shaped her experience to be able to move through, how her book came about, the label of the Blue Angel, her mission on Earth, how she's stepping into this. And we talk about some other juicy stuff as well that just dropped in, like men owning their spirituality and holding space for them, and some really other cool things. So this experience you're about to walk through, I can guarantee you it's going to open up your heart more, because my heart got open. At one point in time, I almost started crying, and I could feel the energy of that. And then her son, Travis, dropped into my awareness here, and him and I were chatting while his mom was talking on the podcast. And it was just a really cool thing. So Diane is a medium. She is this beautiful, beautiful spirit in the world doing amazing, amazing work. Her bio and links are in the show notes if you desire to connect with her once you start to listen to this. But all I'm going to encourage you to do is, if you know somebody in life that could benefit from this podcast, send it to them. If you know someone in life that could really use this ear today, send it to them. If you are feeling anything here, tag the two of us on social media, share it in your stories on Instagram, take a snapshot of this podcast and help us spread the word. Because like I say numerous times, and you've heard me say it before, if you've been here, if you've listened to any of these episodes, it's like we can't do the mission on Earth without everybody kind of being lit. So this could be a passageway for someone to step in or have the courage or move through some experience for them, and they wouldn't be able to find it unless you shared it or you posted it or you did whatever you want. So if you feel called and that is in you, I'm going to encourage you to help us spread the word. The more people that can get access to these podcasts, the more light is spreading in the world. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to Diane in episode 40 of the Light Warriors Unleashed podcast. Enjoy. Diane, I am like so excited. And I say this, I think, on every single podcast when I open. And I realize whenever I go into the podcast, I'm like, I need to find some new words at the beginning, but I really am excited. Like, I'm actually so excited to have you on, for us to jam out on these subjects and to like really lean into this juicy conversation. So we were talking about juicy before we hit record. So that's why I'm laughing at juicy. But hi, welcome. I'm so happy to have you.
Hello, Colleen. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited. I love talking all things spirit. I love talking. Well, I love just talking. I'm a talker, so
perfect. Well, welcome. We have lots to discuss. I feel like we're going to be like really aligned in a lot of things, and I think that we're going to really bring some cool context to the work you do, to the mission you have on Earth, and some ideas or things that people may not have considered working, with spirits on the other side and some of the work that you do. So obviously everyone heard your bio moving through, but I think I want to open and lead, because I think this is going to take us on a pathway as we move through this experience together. Is you wrote a book, and is it recent? Is the book recent?
I wrote the book in 2015. So it's been quite a while since I wrote the book, but I did all the things wrong in publishing. I self-published and learned what not to do next time. So I'm in the process of writing a new book and taking my time with it. The first book I actually wrote in a weekend. I started on Friday night at 7:00, and by Sunday night, the book was complete. I channeled it all. It was my story, my son's story. So it was pretty easy. I say it was easy, but other people go, you what? You did what? You wrote a book in a weekend? But I'm like, I actually did, because I just sat down, set a timer for every 15 minutes, and got up and had a drink of water, walked around my chair, sat back down and wrote and wrote and wrote, and just stayed in the flow of it for, 2.5 couple days straight, and got it all out. And then from there, it didn't take, I sent it to, well, that's a whole story. I sent it to an editor, and it was really easy peasy going through the whole process of getting it self-published. And that's sort of where it's sat. It was easy to sell the first 1,000 copies. I sold 1,000 copies really quickly. Yeah. Friends, family, just, I always say it's easy to be a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
from small town Alberta. So it was easy, you know, to sell the first 1,000 copies, and then it just sort of sat, and that's where it is. Cause I'm not real good at self-promotion.
Well, it's so fun. I have the exact same experience as you. I wrote a book at the end of 2012, and self-published in 2013 and like launched it out. But like I would go up to the cottage and literally channel for like an hour, get a chapter written, and I'd write 3 chapters in 3 days. I could have written the whole book in one time, but I didn't. And
Yeah.
then got it out. And it's so funny. I actually read the book sometimes and I go, who even wrote this? Like, I don't even know what this word means, you know? Like, I'm like, it's just, and it's so random. Like I used to be in business coaching, so it's more aligned in that world and the space that I used to be in. But I understand the dynamic of being able to connect. And I think this is an important piece leading us in, is that connection to self and trusting the messages dropping in, that you can write a book in a weekend, that you can do these kinds of things, that you can step into this space of. So let's go to the book, I think. And then I want to talk about your mediumship, but I think it all flows all together anyways.
Yeah.
But so tell everyone the title of the book and why you wrote the book, because I'm like really inclined about this blue angel in the title and like what this means. And I'll just let you take the baton and go and lead us into the story.
For sure. So the book is called About a Blue Angel. And I had a son who passed away. I guess that's a story in itself, but my middle of 3 sons, I had 3 sons, and this was 20 some years ago now, I think 26 years ago. My middle son, who was 6 years old, was ran over and by one of my very best friends at the time.
Wow.
And that ended his life, his physical life.
Yeah.
So my oldest son, Levi, was 8 at the time. My youngest son, Devin, was 5, and Travis was 6. I had them very, very close together.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so the book is a memoir of how his story, it's funny when you lose a child, for the first little while, it consumes you. And that's all you do is think about your child, and everybody around you thinks about your child, and everybody sees you. I remember going to the grocery store and having, I would go at midnight because it made people so uncomfortable to see me.
Wow.
I'd like on an aisle and somebody would be, coming down the aisle the same way, and then they'd see me and you could just see terror. Like, what do I say to her? Because it's a thing, right? People don't know back to you when you've lost a child. I think when you've lost anybody, but I think children, when we lose children, it sort of goes to another level a lot of
Especially
times.
that young, right? He was 6.
Right.
So
Yeah, he was 6.
yeah.
So, and tragically, and
Yeah.
in our small community, my friend who ran over Travis was also very much a part of our group and in the community. So people rallied around her as well, right? Like it was just a tragedy for my family. It was a tragedy for her family as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, where was I going with this? So I wrote the book to sort of continue my son's life and his legacy. I wrote it for my other children because they were so young at the time. I wanted to write about their brother and let them know this is the story, so that one day they could read it and go, oh yeah, I remember, or oh yeah, and there's a part in the book where I talked to my oldest son, Levi, in 2015, when just before I put the book out, and I added it to the book, and I asked him, I said, so buddy, what do you remember about that time? And this gets me every time, because he said to me, I just remember it was my fault. And I went, pardon? And he's like 28 at the time or something. And I was like, what do you mean it was your fault? You didn't run over Travis. And he goes, no, but I was a big brother. Why didn't I take him with me that day? Because they were all we were camping, and, the boys all jumped on their bikes and were going off. But another part of the story, Travis had some disabilities, so he wasn't able to bike with them. And Levi had held on to this guilt for all these years. And it wasn't until I read the book that I even realized and recognized that he was hanging on to guilt. I said, you what? And he goes, I was a big brother. Why didn't I take him? I should have taken Travis with me. Why did I just leave him there at the campsite? And I was like, buddy, this isn't your issue. This wasn't your tragedy to carry, beyond the fact that you miss your brother. So I think Travis channeled, I channeled him through the whole story, and he was with me. And I think part of his reason for wanting to help me get the book out was for that, to
Yeah, to help.
that voice as well, right? So there's so many positive things that came from the story, from our story. But the Blue Angel actually came from the first Christmas after Travis passed. I went to write out Christmas cards. I'm dating myself now because people don't even do that anymore, right? But
some people still do. I know.
some people still do. But I went to write out Christmas cards, and I always wrote like Arlen, who's my husband's name. So Arlen, Diane, Levi, Travis, Devin. And I went and I wrote Arlen, Diane, Levi, and I was like, how do I just dismiss
him? Yeah.
him? How do I just, like, I just stopped, and I thought, I'm never writing a card again. I'm not doing this. Like, I didn't know what to do. So I just drew a little blue angel.
Oh, where his spot was. Wow, my body's in goosebumps.
Yeah, I just made a little symbol of an angel and then put Levi, Angel, Devin. And that sort of, I just did it because it was a mechanism for me to sort of cope with that loss. And I didn't even realize that all of my family sort of rallied around that, that they knew that's why I did it. But then all of a sudden, my younger sister got a tattoo of an angel, the little blue. And she bought me, I got a tattoo. I'm not a tattoo person, but I do have one on now because she paid for it and said, we're going to get your angel. So I have them on my back. My niece put it on her, like, so the started recognizing this little blue angel because it was blue ink, and blue symbolizing boy, back in the day, not so much anymore, but symbolizing boy. So that's where the Blue Angel story came from. So we started just using that as a symbol for Travis, who's, not gone. So he's still, yeah. But if I had to put Travis's name there, people would be like, she's losing it.
Yeah.
He's not gone, but by putting that angel there, it worked for him. So that's where the Blue Angel came from.
And it's so obviously that started a movement, but like for me, I can feel that that's actually part of some of the work that you do on this earth experience. And whether I don't know if you recognize that or not, which I'm sure I feel like you do, but like it became something totally also like grew into something bigger than that. Would you agree?
Huge. Yeah, absolutely. And I am a medium, and I was a medium full time. Well, not full time, but I do quite a few readings a week, so I guess it is full time. But Travis now works with me through the whole story. I sort of start with his story of his life because, like I said, he was born with a disability, so it sort of talks about that. So it's kind of a double tragedy, where he sort of rallied back from almost death as a child, and then ends up having this death experience anyway at a very young age, and then moving into me sort of connecting with him in a spiritual way after he passed, and then now him working with me, especially when I do readings for people with children. He's definitely around, but I kind of jokingly say a lot of times I can connect with Travis a lot easier than I do my other two sons, who are 32 and turning 30 right away, and doing their own thing, having their own lives. And so I can talk to Travis, and he's available to me all the time.
Well, and it's also like he's not in a human experience, so like you're not dealing with all the meat suit and the human there. It's the purity of the connection with him, right? So I would see it being like easier in context, for the energetic flow. Okay, I have a couple questions about this because I think this is really cool. Were you a medium? Well, like you've always been a medium, but were you actually owning your mediumship at the time that he passed away, or was this an experience that came about because of this?
Well, okay, so I say that I learned the language of spirit after the accident happened, because before that, I didn't recognize that I was any different than anybody else. I thought, and it's so funny because my husband always says to me, or did say to me and still does, but Diane, you just see things differently. Diane, you're very intuitive. Diane, you know things. And I just thought, okay, so I'm super intuitive, but everybody can connect. Like, I didn't realize that people it made it very difficult when I sat on like the hockey board for years, or the school board. When I would see like agendas play out in front of me, and I was sometimes like, people would come up to me and go, why are you playing devil's advocate? Or why do you always look at the negative? I'm like, how can you not see what's happening? Like, I could see things. People would bring an agenda to the meeting and I could see 3 steps ahead. So I knew where they were going with it. But I didn't realize that nobody else could do that. And I'm looking and so for me, I didn't even explain that I could do that, because to me, I didn't realize that nobody else could.
Yeah.
I just thought that people were in tuned, and some people were a little bit slow, but some people were
special,
quicker, a little quicker on the take with it. But I didn't recognize that my skills in that department were I don't really call them a gift. I don't like that, because I feel like a gift is something that you're given outside of something special. Yeah. And I really don't feel that my intuition, my mediumship, my able to connect is a gift so much as it's all a God-given gift. We all have the opportunity. It's like some people sing. Everybody can sing. Some people sing with their hands if they're deaf. Some people sing very badly. Some people sing naturally. Some people can be taught to sing, and very technically. Yeah. So we can all make sound. We can all sing. Some people are just better at it than others. That doesn't mean that it was a gift that this person was given to sing. We can all do it. The gift, I guess, is in the skill or the ability and how much time you put into it. And so after the accident, I think that's when I started to really was more consciously tuned into it. When I recognized that I was talking to Travis and connecting with him, not that I hadn't connected to my grandfather that had passed. I'd get signs, but I just thought, oh, this happened. Oh, it's grandpa. And I just never really thought about me connecting where nobody else could.
Yeah.
So yeah, with Travis, there was a show on at the time, Crossing Over with John Edwards. You heard of Edwards Medium, psychic medium. It was really big at the time. And it was like from 5 to 5:30 every day around the time that Travis died. And that became sort of my church every day. I tuned into that because I was like, oh, I really want to do that, and then talking and he's doing it. I'm like, I do that, but I wanted to speak the language of spirit. I wanted to do it more efficiently. I wanted to do it more consciously. So that's sort of where it went from there for me, is after the accident, but it's certainly something that I was utilizing my whole life and just didn't recognize it as different.
Well, and I think that's the real key that you say is like, it's always been in us, and I call it a soul mission, and we have a mission here on earth, and it's been activated in us this whole entire time, but we just have distortions around it, or like our beliefs aren't allowing us to see it, or whatever it is. Like my channeling, my friends called me all the time and asked me for advice, and I thought that I was just being a good friend, and I didn't understand. Every time I would answer, this is what I feel, but I didn't connect any dots until someone like pushed me into doing like a night with the psychic, where I was like, I don't do this kind of work. And they're like, so I booked you in. And all I kept hearing was, you need to say yes. And I was like, so like I did all the preparation work, I did all the stuff in advance. I stopped eating meat and dairy and stopped drinking alcohol and all the things I thought I needed to do, and created a protocol. Like, as you could tell, like from right at the beginning, is like, I don't got a script. We're just following the flow. Like there's no regimentation. So for me to regiment anything was crazy. And then I stepped into the room, I opened the circle up because we sat in the circle. And then all of a sudden we just went, and people were like, how do you know all this? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how I know it all. And then I started to actually own it. So like for you, it's the same thing. It was almost like it became an awareness. Now you're like, oh, this is actually me in how I do life.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm not like a ritual person, I'm not dripping with, I'm not wearing the robes and, have the crystals. I like them, and it's fun for me, but I always say I'm as grounded as dirt. I'm very grounded. I'm a very grounded person, but the same thing, people would come to me and I would just know what to say intuitively to people. So I found that a lot of people would, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And, and I'm very blunt. It's in my nature to just sort of say what I think. So like I say, that can be hard on a kid, sometimes,
Yeah.
or even as a young adult. I found my worst years were probably, those um school board meetings and the hockey meetings for sure, because I was blunt and I was just like, well, this is the way it is. I just know what I know. And it got me into a lot of trouble a lot of times. But now I'm like, I wish I had the wherewithal now that I had then that I have now, because now I would just say, well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Where at the time I would second guess myself for a minute and go, well, why are they all saying this, but I'm saying this, So it was hard on me too. But I think that just comes with maturity, and knowing yourself enough to go, wait a second, I do know this.
Yeah.
I do know this, and I'm confident in the fact that it came to me because it's coming from a place of truth and my truth, and it's coming from a place that I trust. Right. So I can now step into that power and that confidence when I do say something.
Well, and I think also too, it's about the awareness part, right? So because you've been owning who you really are and really working with your like the skills you brought here and remember inside of you to serve the experience here on earth, now you can fully step in and embody some of the parts of you that are moving through this aspect and be able to hold it where you were still questioning. And I think we all go through this, we're on a journey and we question it. We're like, oh, can I really hold this? Can I handle this? Should I really say this out loud? Is this really the truth? No one else believes this. Why do I? And like all of the questions or whatever it is. So it's a perfect example too of the growth through spiritual evolution and us listening to our souls and the pathway that we're on and all of that dynamic. So cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's where our elders and our, the wise, the older people of the world have such wisdom, regardless of their background. Experience gives them the wisdom because they're tuning into and they know themselves well enough that they sort of, I think in a lot of cases, they block out the things in their lives that no longer are important. As you get older, you recognize what's really important.
Yeah.
And part of that is just going within and knowing yourself well enough to follow that intuition a little bit more, right? That's why there's some elders that have had terrible upbringings, have been terrible people, but all of a sudden they're 70 and 80 years old and people are going to them for advice and going, oh, these people are so wise. And you're going, have you looked at their life? They just trashed it through this whole life and made terrible mistakes and did all the things wrong. And, like we're not great people, but they have this wisdom at the end of it. And I think, just recognizing that, I love that, because I go, it doesn't matter how much brain smarts you have. It doesn't matter how much education you've put yourself through in a lifetime. Just getting out and mixing it up and experiencing life is enough to make you wise when you get older and to tune into that. And I think it's so important for people. And I think we're getting to a space, light warriors like yourself and people that are speaking the language of spirit are stepping in and going, no, you know what, it's okay for you at 20 years old to stand in your power and say, guess what, I know this to be true.
Yes.
And really confident in that, right? I think it's important.
It's so important. And you remind me of a story. I a few weeks ago was with the Bribri tribe, and if anyone knows anything about Costa Rica, there's 5 main indigenous tribes here. One of them is Bribri. And I went to a voice activation workshop with them. They came into town. They were here for a few days doing a bunch of stuff. When they come, like they're about 12 hours from here on the other side of the country. And one of the elders was with them, and he even said to me, I ended up doing a one-to-one work with them the next day. Me and one of my friends went up to the mountain, hung out with them for a few hours. He did some work one-to-one, helped us through some clearing work and all that kind of stuff. But he said to us, like, I've been clean for 23 years, but I was an alcoholic and I was a really bad man. Like I was angry and I treated my kids like crap. And his daughter was there and she even vocalized it too. Like my dad was not a good man. And then he started to step into the space of understanding what it actually means to be a human and what it actually means to respect the earth and to respect your family. And a lot of the tribes, especially in the indigenous culture, the woman's voice was diminished in their tribes. Like they were just, you're the homebody, you deal with the kids, you do this, but you don't speak the truth. We come with the knowledge. When he's now, like his wife comes with them and they travel whenever they travel and things along those lines. But it was just interesting how you brought that up and about, we can go through life, like, and all of us have our situations of the times in our life where we did crappy things, or we spoke da 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 da, or we did whatever, but we can always turn inward and start to move through this to make amends, to change the energy, to really escalate. And the more work we do around that to hold that energy, and forgiveness is obviously a big thing, which I'm sure that you can speak to. Like, I can only imagine what it was like, having a really good friend of yours, in that accident, and how that lesson moved through you in general.
The thing with that, and I do this lots because I remember we invited my friend and her husband over for supper about a week after the funeral. They were over, and my friend and I were sitting on our front step, and I remember her looking at me saying, right now everything is okay between us. She goes, but I know you're going to be angry. It's like the 12 steps of grief. Like everybody expects, I know you're going to get to that period where you're angry and you're going to hate me. And I understand, and that's okay. I want you to know I understand that. And I looked at her and I just said, the only thing that will piss me off is if you allow my son's name to be associated with the downfall of you or your family. That's the only thing that will make me angry, is if you fall apart. She was the type of person, she's got a victim mentality anyway. Yeah. Love her, but she's got a victim mentality, always has, always will. It's just who she is. Yeah. So I told her, I said, the only thing, you fall apart, that will disrespect my son, because I don't want his name associated with you falling apart. And I don't want my son's name associated with your family falling apart, or having to go to counseling later because you did the things wrong, because you just became a victim in this. I said, that's the only thing that will make me angry. As far as the accident itself, there was a moment so I'll give you a little bit about the accident. So we were camping, and a friend of ours that was camping with us had a son who had cerebral palsy, and he had fallen. We were all down at the docks fishing, and he had fallen and banged his head and needed stitches. So I took him into the hospital with his mom. We went to the hospital and we were getting him stitched up when a call came in, and the nurse on call, who we know very well, says, we have somebody coming in. I'm going to need the emergency room. And I just dropped because I knew exactly. And it's Travis. And my friend goes, what? And the nurse goes, we don't even know if it's a who or what or anything. And I said, I know. And I just sat, and my friend sat, and we prayed. And then the nurse came out and said, I don't know how you knew it, but yes, it's Travis. He's coming in. And so I forgot where I was going again here. Oh, so what had happened was we had been at the hospital. And so I waited for him to come in. And Lynn, my friend, they were moving, they were going to take a lake lot by ours, and they were bringing a structure in to put on their lot, just a little shed. And Lynn jumped in her vehicle to back up, move, and ran over my son. But when they got to the hospital and in the ambulance, my husband was in the ambulance. So I was already at the hospital. So I go running out when the bay opened and they're taking him out. And I can remember looking across at my husband, and Travis was still alive, but he was on the gurney. And I looked at my husband and I said, who did it? Because I knew that somebody had ran over him. Yeah. And because there were some people that camped by us that would drink and drive. So in my heart, I was like, I don't know if I'm good enough to deal with that, right? Like, I don't know. And I already had that sort of in my head. But as soon as he looked at me and said and he said my friend's name, I don't use her name in the book. I use a different name. Yeah. So you said my friend's name, I just felt relief. Like, people go, what? And I said, I just felt this sense of relief, because I knew that she 100% loved my son. Yeah. And this was just a bad incident. Yeah. Period. I didn't have to be angry at anybody. It wasn't because it was somebody's fault. Yes, I recognize that she was a catalyst to this. She was a co-creator. Of course, yeah. Experience, right? I recognize all that. I don't not believe that. I know that she had a part to play in it for sure, but I didn't blame. And that's why I always say I didn't really need to forgive because I never laid blame in the first place. You know, at Travis's funeral, we walked down the aisle with in front of the casket, me holding on to my friend's hand, my husband's. Her husband was a pallbearer with the casket. You know, we included them, and I did that specifically because I wanted people in our community to know that we're supporting each other and that I was going to support her through this. So yeah, I was angry. I went through the stages of grief, and I went through an angry stage, but it wasn't directed towards her. It was just, I was angry. Of course, my life wasn't going the way that I wanted it to go. I went through anger. I would wake up and I would, you know, have something going on at the school, and I'm going, yeah, I should be there, but Trav's not there, so I don't need to do that today. You know, so there was times where I just was in a bad mood. And, you know, people and another thing, when things like this happen, people in the community rally, they pick sides. And then I had to actually sort of break away from our friend group and go our separate way, and not go to functions and things because it was really, really difficult. Like I said, she was a victim and had a victim mentality. Right. Even though I wasn't feeling it every time. Like when she was on the school board, she was on the hockey board as well. And every time I opposed anything that she was doing, before it wasn't an issue. It's like, oh, they're just on separate sides with their friends. But then as soon as I opposed anything she did, all of a sudden, oh, it's only because of, I even had people phoning me, giving me hell after a meeting, like to yell at me because how can you be so mean to her, you know, just because, and things like that. So it, you know, there's a whole dynamic there that I had to kind of deal with. So yeah, sometimes I was angry, but I can honestly, even now, all these years later, say, I never felt that anger towards her.
Yeah.
I felt anger towards the situation, and I felt the anger towards some of the people that surrounded her that caused issues.
Right.
You know, for us that didn't need to be there because it really wasn't about that. You know?
Yeah. And it's a thank you for all of that and like sharing it all too. Cause I think that there's relevancy. Like there's a lot of people that are potentially listening to this that maybe have been through a similar circumstance or are really leaning into the conversation of owning their truth, and they don't know how to deal with some people considering some of this, you know, like moving that in. I'm really curious to find out. So you started connecting with Travis. You know, he's now a spirit in your world of like, hey dude, what's going on? But how did he tell? Because I imagine you had a conversation with him to go, buddy, like, why'd you check out? What went on? Like, you know, because we know that the soul makes a choice to leave the earth experience. And I can imagine why he left, but I would love to just hear, because I'm like, I've been talking with him because he's hanging out, obviously, while we're recording. So I'm like, I'm getting the 411, but I would love for you to tell everybody what it actually was for you, because I don't want to make up something, you know, like, but yeah, like, what did he say? Like, cause some people are really curious about like, and I want to talk next about the mediumship side and the work you do in the world this way, but because we can connect and you do this, like, let's just say just through Travis to start, like, what did he have to tell you? Cause I'm sure you probably asked him, right? Did you ask him?
I did, and I've gone through it. Well, I guess I can share. So my first connection with him after he passed was in the emergency room.
Yeah.
Happened immediately for me. So while Travis was, we got called in and he was laying on the bed, you know, broken, bruised, and we're sobbing and crying, and my husband was at the head of the bed, crying, and I was at the side, and I was sort of, you know, rubbing his arms, and I felt I was frustrated because I was looking at him and I just wanted everybody to leave the room so I could clean him up. You know, he was messy. I wanted to change his clothes. I wanted to pull the tube that was down his throat out, and, you know, just clean up my baby, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden this like calm came over me, and I was given a gift. It really was. And this is how I can stand in this today and go, I know for a fact that we continue on after I got to witness Travis's spirit leave his body.
Yeah.
And I saw it, I sensed it, I felt it. It was so huge for me to see that. And he lifted, and I saw his soul lift from his physical body and sort of float up into the corner of the room. And then he sort of hovered there for a second and said, you know, like, goodbye, mama. And then he just dissipated, like he was gone. And this calm just sort of, you know, I sat in the room and I thought, okay,
Yeah.
he continues, you know, his body, this beautiful vehicle that he had, is still here, and I love it, and I'm going to grieve that, but I don't have to go where some people and search for him. I knew exactly where he was. I got to see that. So that was powerful. And I think that gift alone, and that was a gift, that gift of him giving me that sort of final physical goodbye was his way of saying to me, proving to me, because I want tangible, right? I want the tangible. I needed to have that. And it was enough for me to stand and go, no, now I believe this. I believe that we'll continue on. I don't have to guess. There's no way I have to guess anymore. Because there's no way anybody could go through that experience and still question. So it's easy for me to stand up and say, no, we exist. We carry on. So that was sort of my first connection with him after he passed. And then I got signs. But when I sat down and actually asked him in a meditation, okay, buddy, why did you choose to leave? You know, like, and he explained to me a couple things. It wasn't so much the why, because I knew his body was broken, like, you know, and if you read my book, you'll hear the whole story of sort of what all the problems that he had and what he had been through as a baby and a young boy. And so I knew there was that part of it. And I'm like, yeah, I probably would have cut out too, because that, you know, it was pretty harsh what he had to go through. But he explained it to me in this way. And I love this analogy. He said, Mom, think about it. And I was so close to God. I was so close to source, God, creator, whatever you want to do, at that moment when I was passing and I had that choice to stay or to go. At that very moment, he goes, it was all love. It was all light. And I had enough of a footing in the spirit world to understand that I wasn't going anywhere. So for me, it was an easy choice. So for him, he got rid of all the physical pain. He got rid of all the physical denseness. He got rid of all the physical emotion that he had, you know, we have as humans that don't have as spirit. Because yes, they recognize guilt and anger and frustration and all those things from that spiritual place, but they don't feel those. They have a full understanding, right? They are, as cliche as it sounds, they are all love and light. So, you know, at that point of break, do I stay or do I go? I hear that song of do I stay or do I go? I hear that in my head all the time when it happens, and that's sort of a part of my spirit dictionary when I'm doing readings. When I hear that, I'm like, oh, somebody had a choice. And we have choices throughout our lifetime. Do I stay or do I go? But at that moment, it's pretty easy when you're looking at, oh, I can stay here in this vehicle that's kind of a little bit broken, and yeah, we're fixing, but you know, I've got some issues and I'm dense and I'm emotional and there's trauma and there's all these things happening. Or, oh, look, light, love, you know, freedom, easy, back, and we'll try it again. And you have enough of an understanding to recognize that you're not missing anything. You're not going anywhere. You're just continuing on in a different vehicle as a vibration and energy. Right.
Yeah. And this is kind of cool because like I've heard, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this because of the work you do. So I am not a medium. I channel like in a way of like I connect in with energies, but I don't do like the mediumship like you do, where I assume they drop into your field. Do you see them? You see them, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm my superpower, I always call it, is claircognizance. So I just with things. But I can see things, hear things, smell things, which isn't attractive sometimes. And so I have, you know, all my clairs are kind of, I would say I'm a know-it-all. That's my superpower, is claircognizance. But yes, I do see them and hear them. Yeah.
A know-it-all. I love that. Yeah. So if I like, just like you had said at the beginning, if I choose to, I could step into that and really work that knowing, we'll call it, inside of me. But I don't play in that world. Like people are like, are you a medium? I'm like, no, like I'm playing more on the psychic side and in the channeling side. Um, but they say that, and they meaning spirit, that I've heard, is when a child leaves the earth before the age of 7, their lesson was for the parents. Do you believe that to be true, knowing that what happened for you guys?
I I think that regardless of when a person passes, the lessons for the people that they've left around them are, I mean, the lessons are there for all of us regardless.
Yeah.
So no, I don't know how people can know that unless,
Yeah.
you know, you're hearing things, but I go to source for most of my inspiration and for most of my knowledge. And there's a lot of things that I'll never know until I get there. And if I think to ask Travis certain things, he'll explain things, but he also explains that I won't know and understand fully till I'm there either.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly the lessons, you know, he chose to, there was several times that he could have passed.
Yeah.
And he stuck around for whatever reason for as long as he did.
Yeah.
And, you know, and chose to leave at 6 years old. And at that time, because the trauma at that time, like I said, you know, do I stay or do I go? It's like, I'm out, I'm
Yeah.
done, you know, and he's gone. And I think, you know, did he even know up until that moment that that was going to be his exit point? I don't think so. I think he made that decision at that time. I truly believe that we have free will. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
don't believe that we come with any preconceived, I don't believe that we have a preconceived path. I
Mm-hmm.
think we come with intention.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you know, we can sit in spirit before we focus our attention into a specific lifetime. And certainly we pick our environment, we pick our probabilities in
Mm-hmm.
that environment.
Yeah.
And we can even set the intention to mix it up with certain people or certain things in that environment. But because we have free will, we also recognize that that can all go to hell as soon as we get here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in everybody here has free will. So one thing can happen that can change the trajectory of your whole path.
Mm-hmm.
You have free will, so you get to choose every minute of every day, every moment of every day. So that's going to change your path. So I don't believe that we come, you know, there's a lot of people that believe, oh, at this age, you're going to do this, and this age, you're going to do this, and this age, you're going to do that. I'm like, you can set all the intentions you want coming in, but you also know as a spirit that when you come here, shit's going to happen.
Yeah.
Things are going to change and you are going to have to go with the flow of it. So no, I don't believe we come here to learn specific lessons. I think we come here knowing that we're going to learn lessons because we're experiencing a human lifetime. We're focusing our energy into a human experience. So we recognize that there are certain things that could happen because of the environment we pick, or, you know, set certain intentions. But I think that we also recognize that can change at any time.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like I believe obviously in free will as well. However, I do believe that we have pillars. So I think that we like, and I explain this like in the most simplest form. We're looking at the whiteboard before we jump into our bodies and we go, okay, I want to take that one on this time and this one on this time. And we take our backpack with us and jump into the earth experience. But we don't know, like, we'll have opportunities to lean into that, but we have the free will to choose or not to choose. But I really feel and believe that over time, there's going to be a timeline that starts to jump in and be like, we need you activated now because some dynamic of who you are is a piece of a puzzle, and without your piece the rest of the puzzle can't be complete. So I've felt that, I've seen it, I've moved it through, and that's kind of how I live. But I also believe that each of us has our own truth. So that truth for you is the truth that you see and feel and is, and just like that one is my truth. Where like some people are like, where am I going to be in 5 years? And I'm like, I don't fucking know. You know, like I can't tell. I could tell you right now today at this moment of time what I can see 5 years down the road, but you could make a decision tomorrow and that whole thing changes. Like I can't predict that part, but here's what I know about the overlying mission, like you are here for a reason. We're all here for a reason. Like, and that's what I feel and believe. Like your mediumship is a gift in the world, and not meaning like it's not like not a gift given to you. It's a gift that you give into the world to help people shift or grieve through or get the answers that they need to be able to move through that, because of the fact
Mhm.
that that's yours, you know, that's your alignment and lane to lean into. And can everybody do it? Like you said, yeah, they can, but are they aligned enough in it? And does it feel juicy enough in their flow? And do they feel like that kind of thing? Right. So I love that you brought that up, because I love to have conversations about different perspectives, because just because I live in a truth doesn't mean that it's your truth. Right. And it's
Mhm.
like we all have our individual, but then it's obviously led by the overall scope of source and spirit energy. But in that we get to play. Like that's why we come to earth, is like, let's
Yes,
come and
yes,
play.
and that's why I think that we're probably saying the same things, but in
Yeah.
different ways. And because the way when I say I set the intention, right, it's like um I come in knowing that I'm going to expand the universe. I'm going to do things that are going to expand consciousness. But I know I've heard you talk about Abraham Hicks, so I know you're well versed in Abraham Hicks.
Yeah.
You've heard of Abraham Hicks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know how Abraham says we are the leading edge. We're on the leading edge. So it's hard for me to believe that our path has been laid out in front of us when we are expanding, ever expanding. So we can have, but our thoughts create energy. So every thought that we have, every point in our lives that we choose, make a choice and choose things, we are setting that thought in motion, right? Energy is motion. It can change, but it never can end.
Yeah.
So with every specific choice we make, with every thought we have, we are creating our future. We are putting that path forward. So then it's like, okay, now we have the path in front of us. We have chosen our path,
Yeah.
right? So that's the thing. It's like, you know, those books that used to be when you were a kid where you could choose the ending by whichever, you know, you take this
Choose your own
direction.
adventure.
Yeah, it's that, right? Like we get to choose. It doesn't mean that the other one isn't there. We're just not choosing it.
Of course.
That path will be there, but we're going to choose this one. And, you know, towards another good way of thinking about it is like we choose a GPS, you know, where you are. If you pick the next nearest town and you throw it in your GPS and you pull out your driveway, if you turn left, your GPS is going to take you to that town, but it may take you longer to get there. If I turn right, it may be the direct route. But if I go left, it's going to try to pull me back to that because that's the point that I want to be at. I've put it in my GPS. But that, I believe, where I may differ here is I believe that we create that through our experience in our lifetime. We're always plugging in our GPS as we go through our conscious decisions. And that starts from before we come here. We set an intention of what we want to, how we want to mix it up, what environment we want, what parents we have.
Yeah.
We that intention going forward, we choose that to focus our attention into this time, this space reality, and into this environment with these people as our people for this time. After that, our choices and our experience happen as we create life in front of us. We are creating our life. We are choosing, and there is a path. I just think that we consciously sort of create it as we go and then move towards it with every thought that we have. So I think we're kind of saying the same thing anyway.
Yeah. And I love the way that we can mold this into this conversation too. I think it's really, really key and important because of the like, and I believe that though, like there is a marker, almost like a pillar. It's like we've got a couple of them. It's like, okay, Diane, you're meant to own this mediumship and to step into this space of mediumship. That's your contribution in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't mean that not all the other things are, like you buying toilet paper for the woman down the street, or all of that could be part of the actual, you know, expansion of your energy inside of this space. But it's cool to just experience this and to like be here and to like have these conversations for people to be able to feel it and step into that, you know. So you obviously,
yeah, and I think it matters where, you know, the lineage of where we've been. You know, we talk about past lives and things like that. I think of it more of like a lineage, right? Where what lineage do I have in my past lives? where did I come from, right? What experiences did I have that bring me to this time? Because as I move through my world now, you can't unknow what you know. And I'm energetically connected to other lifetimes that I've had, and experiences that I've had. So as I vibrate at a certain level and frequencies through this lifetime, of course, I'm going to pick up on things from past lifetimes, and I'm going to pick up on things that I've energetically thought about and put in motion in front of me. So here I am maneuvering through life, sort of bringing things with me and taking things with me forward. But that being said, it's not like, I don't know, we just get to choose. And I love that we just come here with that intention of we can do this, this, and this. And when we get here, yeah, we might do it or we might not. And I think that's where the calling comes in, right? Where you're talking about like a calling that says, do this. When I wrote the book, it was because I was called to write the book. I felt like his story wasn't complete. I had to do this. I wanted to do it for my sons. I wanted to do it to let people know the true story. I felt just pulled to write it because I knew that having other people that have lost children or other people that have lost loved ones, by reading it would heal from my perspective. I was looking for, when Travis died, I was looking for anything I could read to speak the language of it. Like I said, of spirit, right? I wanted similar stories. I loved seeing movies about things in that genre because I wanted to connect with it. And, as I was looking and searching for mediums and people that could connect and sort of that came from, I call them lovingly, the Walking Dead, my parents that walked through life without any sort of religious indoctrination.
Yeah.
So I was free to explore and
so
cool.
Cool.
That point of my life, look and search for meaning in my life because of the tragedy I had. So now writing the book, I want to be the one that's found. I want to be the one that somebody else that is searching can grab my book and see a different perspective and then go within and go, what about this do I believe and what about this don't I believe? So, that's really the calling that I had is pulling that calling, write this out, because there's so many ways that this story and you're talking about it and you're giving the book and putting it out there energetically is going to advance thought and move us through to the next step or stage, whoever listens. Yeah.
It is so powerful too. And it's like, it's that ripple effect. And I think that if we really lean into this and live life through that intuitive pull and taking action that way and letting ourselves be guided to trust and surrender, into this, you're like, I'm not an author, but okay, I'm going to write this book. Like, like maybe growing up, you never thought you'd write a book. Like it wasn't something in your awareness potentially, or maybe it was, but like you sat down one day and went, I'm going to trust and I'm just going to step in. And now understanding that ripple effect in the world, why it was created, why you felt called to it, how it healed even one of your sons just by having this discussion. Would it have come out later on? Who knows, right? But the opportunity opened the doorway for him to even step in and speak that out loud, right? So it's like, we never know what is going to transpire. Our job is to just keep listening and taking action in that. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I'm surrounded by a lot of men. Obviously, I just have 3 sons and my husband, and that was another sort of dynamic we got to watch after Travis died. Is, my girlfriends would come over and couples would come over, and of course there's the hugs and all the things, and people are really supportive, especially of the mom and the women and everything. But my husband is a very dynamic person, and he has a lot of friends, and he had a big group of friends, and it was for weeks after the incident that all of a sudden a guy would show up at our door, and you'd open the door and he'd be standing there with my husband's choice of drink at the time, which was, Crown Royal whiskey. He'd have a bottle of Crown Royal whiskey and just be standing there. And it's like, all right. So we knew what was going on. They just wanted to connect. So they would come in, pretty soon my kids are in bed. I go to bed and my husband and him are having a drink, discussing really serious and spiritual things, and they got deep and heavy. That's just the way they did it, right? But after a time, I got to really recognize what value there was. Like, these are I say I'm from Northern Alberta, Canada. So, we're in a redneck community here. And, I lovingly, yeah, we got rednecks all over and work in, trades and really tough guys and ranchers and farmers and all these people. And yet here they were sitting at my kitchen table discussing spiritual things and really having these heart to hearts. And I would just sort of move myself from the space and go to bed so that they could really have those conversations. And my husband was, he is the type of person that people just, he's very intuitive himself, and he leans into it and just allows people to talk about whatever they need to. He's very sensitive that way. He's a tough guy. When you first meet him, it's like, he's a big buff, burly guy that, you wouldn't think that he's got soft spot, but it was perfect for him in the world too, to be able to share that and for these people to expand and have these really meaningful conversations. It was beautiful. It was beautiful to watch go on after.
And I think this is a key thing too, is like a lot of men like maybe don't know how to embrace this side to them and really connect in and develop these deep, meaningful like commitments almost to each other, like in the manhood, like, and you as a woman understood that and backed off, where there's some women out there that would try to be in it and like, I want to be a part of this too, when it's like that, honoring that experience for them. And we're all spiritual beings, whatever gender we chose to drop in on in this world now, like all of us are, and it's like we all have the duality within each of us. And like we have a driver and a masculine energy, just like we have our feminine, and just like men have both as well. But most people, especially I can imagine growing up in that environment, it wasn't brought forth a lot, right? So just them, because ranchers, blue collar, that kind of energy, right? So just them alone doing that is just such a beautiful thing. I love that you shared that.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. It was really, really cool to watch. And then of course, when I, came out of the closet, I went to when I really started speaking the language and I really got into the mediumship, is, watching John Edwards and stuff, and then thinking, okay, and I'm reading things by Sylvia Brown, who's passed, and Doreen Virtue, who was major on the scene at the time. And, I'm going to these things. And like I said, I was really searching for the language. I was searching for all things spiritual and what I believed, and sort of, picking through it all and going, okay, I believe that, or that sounds right, but I don't get that. And, like I was really filtering through my world. And at the time, there wasn't a ton of spiritual things like there is now. There's so much, media out there. There's so many things. There's so many books and things and different perspectives. At the time, you had the Doreen Virtues, you had the Wayne Dyers, you had the Sylvia Browns, all these people. And so I was filtering all through that. And then, I decided to go to this mediumship workshop that was going in a town near us. And I went for the weekend, and it was after the first day of, and at that time I hadn't really grasped that I was doing mediumship. I just knew that I was connecting and I was intuitive, and I could, get signs from Travis and everything and talk to him. But, I still wasn't cluing in that it was something outside, of normal scope for people. And I go to this thing, and then there was a few people there that were mediums that were sort of expanding themselves. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm a beginner. Here I am. And I'm sitting down, and all of a sudden I'm realizing, wait a second, I do that. I already do that. Oh, you're talking about expand. I do that. Doesn't everybody do that? Like I couldn't figure it out. So I had this, great epiphany and going, I am a friggin' medium. I am doing this. What am I, looking for somebody else to show me how to do this when I'm doing it? I could be teaching the class.
Yes.
So it took that weekend. And then I went home, and the power of Facebook, I just went on and said, hello, guess what I did this weekend? Guess what I'm doing? And I put it right out there and said, right on Facebook, put a blurb, I'm going to be doing mediumship. And I said, anybody that's uncomfortable with this, feel free to block me or unfriend me. I'm good with it, whatever. Anybody that wants free reading, I'm practicing. Well, I had over 40 people message me instantly. Wow. Friends, family, I wouldn't even have thought would be interested. And I'm like, all right, here we go. So I gave all these free readings and just, practice my skill, and it would, I would tune in and I would just start saying things, and I was amazing myself as much as I was amazing other people. I was like, holy, did you see that? And they're like, no, actually I didn't. But I'm like, it's right there, like, so it was expanding as I was doing this and practicing and just, setting my teeth into it and stepping into it and going, all right, here we are, we're going to do this. And then trusting everything I got. And of course, these were friends and family that I was practicing on. And I did a ton of them, of these readings, and was getting some powerful things. And I, all right, I can do this. Obviously I can do this. So then it's just, from there, it just sort of took off. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And so what are you like up to today? Because obviously we know the evolution of movement. Like we move through and we dig in there, and then all of a sudden we open up more and more. The book came out in 2015, and you're writing another one. So what's in the palette now? Like we'll obviously have all your contact details and stuff in the show notes. People can find you, but like what's going on in your world? I'd just love to hear this.
My favorite thing to do is teach. My favorite thing to do is teach beginner psychic classes.
Yeah.
And an advanced mediumship class. I'll be holding workshops in the fall, and I do them in 2-day workshops kind of thing. And I love just playing with energy. And I love to teach people how to play with different modalities. Like when I do readings, I don't need modalities. I don't use cards. I don't use pen, I don't use any of the things, but I love playing with everything.
Yeah.
For just, my own fun. I think it's amazing. And I don't take things, even though we deal with spiritual and serious topics, I don't take my mediumship seriously. I like to have fun with it because I think spirit wants us to have fun with it. I'm really, when I get caught up in something, I sort of always come back to self and go, okay, Diane, what do you want to do with this? I have this thing where I tell myself, you're an adult and you get to do what you want. I remind myself of that all the time. You get to do what you want. And, whenever I start to follow somebody, and look for a new guru, or I'm, searching and going, oh, they're doing that. That's really cool. I should be doing that. And then I think, does that fit you? Does that suit you? So I always come back to self and go, wait a second. I am this grounded person. I am this person that just wants to tell it like it is. So I'm not going to go and play that game or be that person that I'm not. I have to always sort of bring it back to myself. So yes, I love to do things like this, speak spirit. I just love to talk about spirit. I love to expand my own horizons and expand my own perspective by having juicy conversations with people. And, every time we have these conversations, I'm creating energy. I'm creating a new thought pattern. I'm getting a new way and perspective coming to me. Like you say, you channel. And of course, doing your podcast, you're getting that all the time. I'm sure every conversation you have, you get new perspectives on things. You're growing and learning. So I love that. I started, so I love doing my workshops. That's my favorite thing. I still do readings. I love to get in there and do it. I do several a week. Right now I'm booking into September. Don't know when your podcast is coming out, but I'm booking into September. So a couple months from now. And I love doing that, but I'm started getting into the speaking part. And this is, I'm kind of pushing myself a little bit. I can stand up and talk about spirit all day, obviously, I can talk spirit all day long, but to do it in more of a formal message setting, I'm pushing myself right now. So I've joined the Blue Talks family. I don't know if you know Blue Talk.
No.
So Blue Talks is kind of like, the owner of it, Corey Poirier is his name, and he created this Blue Talks group, and you'd actually be really good in. I'm going to send you.
Note to self. I was attracted to the blue part, so I was like, oh, blue.
Yeah, it's BLU, Business Life Universe. It is. So it's like TED Talks meets Chicken for the Soul is how he kind of describes it.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of like an expanding thing where they do these talks all over the place, and you can stand on stage and give your 20-minute talk just like a TED Talks, but it's not quite as structured as a TEDx. So I'm going here at the end of July. Actually, I'll be in Cambridge at Cambridge University. speaking on the Blue Talk stage there. I've been invited to do that or have an opportunity to do that. I'm going to be in a book. I wrote a chapter in a book with James Redfield, who wrote The Celestine Prophecy.
Yeah, I love him.
So, yeah, so he's in a book that I'm going to be in, wrote a chapter, all these multi-author books. And so Blue Talks has one that I'm in as well, and wrote a story, just a chapter in that. I love to write. I love to speak spirit. So I'm always expanding, evolving, doing things, but standing up on the stage and doing more of a formal talk, that's pushing myself a little bit. So we'll see how it goes in July. Yeah, so that's sort of I just keep it open, people ask me, hey, do you want to do this? And I, if it feels good, I'm like, yep. If it doesn't, I go, no, not ready for that, so I just sort of, I say yes, and then I talk myself into it a lot. I make up my talk myself into it.
Well, if it's being led by spirit, right, it comes through you and you're like told to say yes, then our job is to step in, but then we deal with the human stuff too. Like, can I really say this? Can I make it happen? And all the other things that come through our mind.
Well, and that's the thing. This is a 20-minute talk I'm doing, and I'm trying to like memorize my speech because I don't want to get lost up there. And part of me knows that once I get up there, I'll probably just start talking. And I just want to follow the PowerPoint. I've got, a PowerPoint presentation that I'm like, oh Lord, Diane, is this too structured for you? But I'm going to give it a go and see if I can do it, because, to be hired as a speaker, people want to know what message you have and try to, sort of frame it a little bit. So that's sort of where I'm at right now. Just I'd love to stand up in front of a room full of people and, talk my message. And really my message at the end of the day, anybody can do this. And to have fun with it, and to have, I think the most important thing that I do every day is, even when I'm doing readings, is to show people through my own experience and through them looking, through a lens at my life, going, oh, you can have a full and happy and wonderful life regardless of the fact that you've lost somebody and you're going through grief. To me, that's the most, working with parents and saying, it's okay to be okay.
Yeah.
That's the title of my talk. It's okay to be okay. I love it. Okay that you are happy.
Yeah.
Even though you've lost a child or a loved one. It's okay that you're living life and having fantastic time doing it, regardless that this loved one isn't in your life. I think that's the most important thing, because we all are going to be together again. We're all going to see each other.
Yeah.
We're all going to be in that, focus back into source energy or spirit, into that space. And we're all going to sit around and go, wow, that was cool, and have this full understanding of the whole lifetime. There's no time and space there. It's all quick. So, they're not missing anything. So why should you out on anything in this lifetime experience? If anything, it's given me more freedom. I was more wound a little tighter and less likely to do things before I lost Travis than I am now, because I think now I recognize that life is fragile, and can be gone so quickly that you might as well enjoy it while you're here.
Yeah.
And really, that's a message, is to tell people, it's okay that you lost a child. You can still laugh. You can still have a good,
powerful.
I think that's important thing through it.
And I think that is where we're going to leave off. I think that you just closing it out that way and really holding that energy, plus my market's here. So I gotta go pay the market guy.
I saw the truck. I'm like, oh, I hope that's not for her.
It usually takes him a couple minutes to get it out of the truck. So I was like, okay, I gotta pay him cash, right? He can't just leave it outside. So, but I know, but that was a beautiful ending. Like, I think that really honing in on that message, it's okay to be okay. And like, I felt your heart through this whole experience, Diane. And I really feel like the message you brought through, like, was a powerful one. And I already know someone I'm going to share this whole, like, right when you started talking, I was like, whoa, this person needs to hear this. And I'm going to send it to her to be like, here's the universe is providing us with a beautiful thing today. Go and listen, because I just think that there's going to be so many people that can relate to this. So we'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes where people can connect with you, especially for the stuff you have going on in the fall. This is going to launch in July, so people will have access to the workshops and stuff that you're up to. But if there's anything else you want to kind of say to the universe, please feel free to do it, or else we're good to go.
Yeah, I think just thank you so much. Thank you so much for allowing me to do what I love to do and talk spirit. And yeah, as Corey with the Blue Talks, I'll get you all this information. As Corey says, you know, to be continued. And I think we should
Yes.
say, because I would love to chat with you again. It's been a really, really great visit.
It has been. And I love to see how my relationships start to form now after I do podcast interviews, because probably the last 20 guests that I've had on, I didn't know before jumping on to hear. So for me, I'm like, I love to watch how people, because you sent me a DM and connected to me. And I'm like, I love to see how the universe and God is bringing people to me to serve through this mission that we're both co-creating on. And I'm like,
yeah,
it's just so cool. So I just want to remind everybody, you know, if you felt anything from this, share it out, get the message out in the world. Someone is desiring to hear what Diane just shared with us, and our job is to get them to reach it. So help us spread that out and just keep shining your light bright. And yeah, we'll see you guys again on the next episode.